Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Akam, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us this morning because we have a very, very exciting show in store for you today. We've got a lot to cover. Let's get right to it. Let's go to viewer comments, and let's start with a big one. Just as we kicked off yesterday's show with a big wave, how about this for a big wave coming in? I'm going to put it on the counter right now so you see it officially marked there. This is a wave from our good friends Chris and Brian in Dusseldorf, Germany. That is a new one for us, of course, here on Frankly Speaking. We are international. Dusseldorf, Germany, excuse me. Thank you very much, guys. Safe travels. Thanks for tuning in. That's a great way to kick off the program. How about that? Our map is in the works, as a matter of fact. I got my tax yesterday. So the goal is to have the map ready by tomorrow or Friday's show. And we'll start tacking up all the places, not just in the United States, but worldwide, that Frankly Speaking has received a wave from. So thank you, guys. All right, some viewer comments. Oh, we got a quote of the week from Karen, but we're going to read that one a little bit later on. It ties in with some of the things we'll be talking about this morning, too. So to keep you hooked, I'm going to read Karen's quote a little bit later on in the program. First up, from a viewer yesterday, regarding the omission of woke words from the Democrat vocabulary, all I can say is that a rose by any other name is still a rose. That's a very good point. If you missed yesterday's broadcast, Democrats are now trying to cut these kind of woke words out of their vocabulary because they turned off so many people. Yet I did see that the Democrat Party as a whole overwhelmingly voted at that meeting for DEI policy. So to that viewer's point, a rose by any other name is still a rose. Some of the things, because I think we read this very quickly at the end of the program. These words say, I'm more empathetic than you, and you are callous to hurting others' feelings. Those words, privilege, violence, dialoguing, othering, triggering, microaggression, assault, invalidation, progressive stack, centering, safe space, holding space, and body shaming. Be aware of words proliferating in elite circles that have closed off open conversation and have made it uncomfortable for many people to engage in hard topics. So those words they're trying to steer clear of. It doesn't mean they're not still pushing the theory behind them or the narrative behind them. They just realize that those words turned off so many voters, so they're just trying to hide it now. Other are what they're called seminar room language. This language says, I'm smarter and more concerned about important issues than you. Your kitchen table concerns are small, such things as subverting norms. If you ever use these in your day-to-day conversations, cut it out. Systems of oppression, critical theory, cultural appropriation, postmodernism, Overton window, heuristic, existential threat to, and you name it, climate, the planet, democracy, the economy. When we use words people don't understand, studies show that their part of the brain that signals distrust becomes more active, undermining our ability to reach them. Wow. So even in that sense, that is a lecturing tone, isn't it? They're not smart enough to understand. And that makes the dummies very angry. So there you are. That was from yesterday's story. So thank you for that viewer who sent that in right at the end of yesterday's program. Comment from a different viewer. Regarding the New York City mayoral race, my money is on Curtis Sliwa, the founder of the Guardian Angels. What do you think? Well, I will say that's probably the best chance for a Republican to win in quite some time, but it's still quite an uphill battle. I know he's doing better than Mayor Adams, but you could see a scenario where the vote is split, I suppose, between Mamdani and Cuomo. And at the end of the day, maybe Sliwa walks away with it. If there was more money being thrown behind his campaign, I think there'd be a chance, but there are some Republicans, for whatever reason, that want him to drop out so that a more moderate, and I don't like that term, candidate would win over Mamdani, meaning they want Cuomo. I don't understand that. I don't know how any Republican, I know it's a New York City Republican, so it's a little different, but how any Republican could try to throw their support behind Cuomo. I do understand the real fear of a socialist running New York City, but hey, I like your bet. As good as any. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Hey, Mark. Whistleblower says Doge uploaded Social Security numbers to an unsecured server. And as far as Trump firing Mrs. Cook from the Federal Reserve, she said she's not leaving. Yes, she's not only not leaving, she has hired Hunter Biden's lawyer, Abby Lowell, to fight Trump's bid to fire her. Now, I'm not sure. I should have done some research. Who was this? The same lawyer that fought back against the judge with that sweetheart plea deal that still wasn't good enough for Hunter Biden? That ended up costing him a lot more legal fees and ended up dragging it out when he was getting away with it scot-free because of that sweetheart plea deal. And that wasn't good enough for them, and the lawyer got a little too big for their britches. And I don't know if it was her or one of the other lawyers that he had with him at the time. But anyway, embattled Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook has tapped Abby Lowell to fight President Trump's efforts to oust her from the central bank over allegations she committed mortgage fraud. Lowell, who is also defending New York Attorney General Letitia James, who's very busy right now, from similar allegations leveled by the Trump administration, vowed to file a lawsuit after the president announced he was dismissing Cook for cause. Lowell saying in a statement, President Trump has no authority to remove Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. His attempt to fire her based solely on a referral letter lacks any factual or legal basis. We will be filing a lawsuit challenging this legal action. Now, CNN, and I'm going to talk about the Doge thing in a second, but CNN's Stephen Collinson says that Trump aims high in his bid to impose ultimate power. That's what this signals with the attempted firing of Lisa Cook. According to Stephen Collinson, in The Gospel According to Donald Trump, the book The Art of the Deal, the future president laid out his business and life philosophy. I aim very high, and then I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing to get what I'm after. Sometimes I settle for less than I saw, but in most cases, I still end up with what I want. Once, Trump used this technique to haggle with contractors, to intimidate rival real estate sharks, and in endless lawsuits to pursue his business interests. 28 years later, he hasn't changed. His pushing and pushing and pushing just takes place on a grander and more consequential stage. The president's relentless attempts to create leverage and wield decisive and uninhibited power on multiple fronts have dominated a summer in which he's been more unrestrained, listen to this language, than ever. August has often been a cruel month for presidents. In 2014, in an odd echo of today, fighting raged in Gaza and Ukraine, intruding on President Barack Obama's vacation and raising questions about his leadership. Chroniclers of the Biden years date the start of the eclipse of the 46th president's administration to August 26, 2021, when a suicide bomber killed 13 Americans at a Kabul International Airport. Trump motored through this August determined to beat the curse, always testing the boundaries of what is appropriate, legal, or constitutional conduct in a president. His pushing culminated this week with threats to federalize National Guard troops and send them to Chicago, even when Democratic leaders of the city and the state of Illinois told him to stay away. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But also, Trump is pushing his authority on another front, announcing this week he has fired Federal Reserve official Lisa Cook. It's not clear whether Trump has the power to fire Cook, but he's trying it anyway, aiming high and seeing if he can get what he wants. Anyway. So this is just yet another threat of this authoritarianism that we're seeing, according to the mainstream media of the Trump administration. Nothing will stop Trump aiming very high and pushing and pushing and pushing, said Stephen Collinson. And to Mark's point on Doge, and thank you for this, Mark, because this gives me an excuse to go through some of these stories really quick, because we've got a lot to dig into with other stories at length. But Doge, they are claiming at the New York Times, that's of course the Department of Government Efficiency, uploaded a copy of a crucial Social Security database in June to a vulnerable cloud server, putting the personal information of hundreds of millions of Americans at risk of being leaked or hacked, according to a whistleblower complaint filed by the Social Security Administration's chief data officer. The database contains records of all Social Security numbers issued by the federal government. It includes individuals' full names, addresses, and birth dates, among other details that could be used to steal their identities, making one of the nation's most sensitive releases of personal information. The account by the whistleblower Charles Borgs underscores concern that have led to lawsuits seeking to block young software engineers at the agency built by Elon Musk from having access to confidential government data. In his complaint, Mr. Borgs said Doge members copied the data to an internal agency server that only Doge could access, foregoing the type of independent security monitoring normally required under agency policy for such sensitive data and creating enormous vulnerabilities. Mr. Borgs did not indicate that the database had been breached or used inappropriately. Okay. So thank you, Mark. Some other breaking news coming out yesterday. That was just that first segment right there. It was all just based on viewer comments. I like that. SpaceX. Elon Musk's SpaceX. Their massive Starship rocket completed its 10th test flight yesterday night and its most successful blast off to date. Following a slew of setbacks and past tests that ended with the spacecraft exploding in the air. We've all seen those videos. Quite remarkable. The 400-foot-tall Starship rocket finally took off from SpaceX's Starbase facility in Texas at 7:30 p.m. yesterday after having to abort the mission 2 nights in a row due to weather and tech issues. The Starship's historic voyage saw the rocket blast off without a hitch before it splashed down in the Indian Ocean, mostly intact except for rare flaps burned during re-entry. You can see the videos online of the staff and employees at SpaceX celebrating. During its journey, the Starship soared a couple of hundred kilometers above Earth as it successfully detached its booster and distributed all 8 dummy satellites into orbit for the first time since the 9th test's fiery descent. Tuesday's test also marked the second ever successful Raptor engine relaunch. All right. The Federal Aviation Administration cleared the way for the latest test to proceed following a probe of the 9th launch, which saw the Starship rocket fail to deploy dummy satellites and burn up as it plunged back towards Earth's atmosphere. SpaceX officials said they identified the cause of the issue as a failure in the main fuel tank, which was patched ahead of further attempts. Eager space gurus watched the feed live from Starbase, Texas. They erupted in repeated applause after each satellite was deployed during Tuesday's run. The descent back down to Earth posed a few more challenges as the crew sought to intentionally stress the rocket and test its capabilities, namely the strength of its heat shield. There was some coverage of this as if they wanted it to blow up. That was kind of an interesting spin on it. But of course, because of Elon Musk, there had to be a negative tone. I mean, in any other scenario, if it wasn't Elon Musk, I believe there would be a lot of more coverage of this, not only, but also positive coverage. But instead, there's always that little spin to try to paint it negative. When we come back, we're going to tell you a couple big stories. The one being, of course, Cracker Barrel, the saga we have followed all week. Yesterday, President Trump weighed in on Cracker Barrel's new logo, and then everything changed. And before that, we're going to tell you kind of a cool story here in New York. No, we're not moving to a New York section of the program yet. We'll get to that later on. But I just think you'll find this interesting coming out of Grand Island High School. We're going to tell you about a young student who won a pretty big free speech battle with her school. We'll tell you about that when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is the start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family owned and operated in Elmira Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
August pretty and the hottest deals are here only at Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships in Mansfield. Ford Summer Sales Event is here with 0% APR for 48 months on brand new 2025 Ford F-150. Don't miss the Make This the Summer Sales Event where you now get $2,000 of bonus cash on all new 2025 Ram 2500 models. Enjoy up to $11,000 off brand new 2025 Chevy Silverados and up to $5,000 off 2025 GMC Acadia. So stop and shop to save some green off Route 15 to Mansfield where we're taking the deals the other guys won't.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. What a beautiful view of historic Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. Couple comments here. Let's get right to them. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I'd like them to add adulting and triggering. Yes, I would too. Triggering might have been on the list. I don't think that was the extensive list. If you didn't catch the story yesterday or kind of a quick review of it this morning, kind of the woke culture is saying we can't be so forward. We can't be so open with our woke terms. It's bothering people. It's causing us to the Democrats to lose votes. So they're asking very much the woke culture that still believes in these things, just to use different language so they don't sound so condescending. I think adulting is used way too much. I don't know if that's even considered like a woke term or if that's just something people thought was cute. But I'm with you. Those two are way overused. Also, I've noticed that Fox News rarely mentions Curtis Sliwa. I find that very curious. They seem to be sucking up to Adams, who proved himself, in my opinion, years ago. He was all for welcoming the illegals in the sanctuary city and did little to fight the crime. So I don't know what's behind this sudden love for him not buying it. I think it's really anybody but Mamadani, to not just Fox, but to other outlets too. There's a real fear there that not just the disastrous policies for the city, but his race will kind of become a bellwether, maybe, of things to come for the Democrat Party. We know that this far left socialist Democrat Party is not successful outside of far left areas. We know, much like we were just talking about with those woke terms, we know that it does not play to the American people. So there's a real fear that if Mamadani and AOC and the squad become the face of the party and then the direction of the party, it looks like in New York Times, I think, doing that research on Democrat registration plummeting, I think it's a disastrous sign for Democrats. So I think that's where their fear is, and they think Adams maybe has a more viable chance than a Cuomo, because it's hard as a Republican or a conservative to show support for Cuomo even over Mamadani. So maybe they think he's the most viable option for them. I'm not sure. Curtis Sliwa, I just don't think there's the money behind him is one of the problems, but there's still a real possibility there for him. All right, I just wanted to mention this quickly because we try to bring you positive stories, not just all negative. A New York high school student has won the right to display Bible verses on her senior parking spot after a battle over free speech and religious expression came to a close. This is at Grand Island High School. They initially rejected Sabrina Steffen's designs because they included Christian imagery and scripture. But after intervention from the First Liberty Institute, a nonprofit legal organization dedicated to defending religious liberty, the school reversed its decision, citing constitutional principles. Quote, "The first design, I wasn't very surprised that they turned that down because I do run a Bible club, and they turned down a lot of stuff in the Bible club," said Sabrina Steffens. I was kind of surprised they turned down the second design because it was only a Bible verse. So that's when we kind of decided to take charge and move forward with this legal action. Steffens was on Fox and Friends, talked with co-host Todd Piro, saying her initial design was a picture of Salvation Mountain, a brightly colored art installation located in the California desert, featuring murals, Bible verses, and other Christian symbols. A drawing of her proposed design also included a heart, which encased a reference to John 14:6. God is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. They, meaning the school, denied that one completely. So I guess you must be able to design your parking spot. Kind of a clever idea. And then there was the second design that just had a Bible verse on it with a Bible verse reference that they had turned down as well. They didn't turn down the last one when it finally didn't have any religious symbols or religious reference at all. First Liberty Institute senior counsel, Keisha Russell, said that the separation of church and state argument raised by critics fails because the Constitution doubly protects religious speech under the Free Speech Clause and the Free Exercise Clause. The Supreme Court reiterated that truth back in the Kennedy versus Bremerton case a couple of years ago, and that was a football coach who was fired for praying on the football field. We have a lot of work to do in our public schools right now. We're so grateful for this win for Sabrina, but there's a lot more work to be done. Grand Island Central School District Superintendent Brian Graham previously issued a statement reiterating the district's commitment to fostering an inclusive school environment that respects the rights and dignity of all students. We also take seriously our responsibility to uphold constitutional principles, including the First Amendment. While we strongly dispute any assertion that our policies or decisions violated the rights of any student, the Board of Education and district leadership have after careful consultation with legal counsel, have decided that the student in question will be permitted. They will be kind enough to permit her, to allow her to use her First Amendment rights to proceed with her original senior parking space design. Something a little bit different there. And I just thought that was a nice story. Speaking of kind of this, I guess you could actually say kind of a pushback on woke culture, I'll be the first to admit the Cracker Barrel one surprised me. I didn't necessarily like the change. I did not think it would receive the backlash that it did. We're going to talk about it, not too long, but give you a quick update on it when we come back. I see some comments coming in. I see some waves coming in. Keep them coming in. We do have a few things here about New York State, a couple things about Mama Donnie, who I know we've already talked about. Maybe some updates on the Democrat Party. ICE. My goodness, we have a little bit of everything. The National Guard. Also, well, why kill more time telling you what we're going to talk about when we could just talk about it? Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
It's a season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my number one goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Stay date on Twin Tiers local news by visiting WYDCTV.com. We've got it all on our website. Daily and weekly weather forecast, question of the day, things to do, and more. Follow us today at Big Fox News on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X. WYDCTV.com, your website for everything Twin Tiers local. WYDCTV.com.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
As always, we thank our friends at Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Coming up in a little bit, we're going to have our quote of the week from Karen, and it is a good one. But first, comment from a viewer. Jack writes in and says, Frank, I did some calculations this morning. Can you imagine the Starship, that's a SpaceX Starship that we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, heavy like we saw at launch yesterday, weighs in at 5,511 tons. That's equivalent to lifting 173 fully loaded 10-wheeled dump trucks all at the same time. Absolutely amazing. That's why I think if it weren't Musk's organization, I think you would have a lot more coverage and more discussion on the historic nature of it as well. So Cracker Barrel has reversed its course on the new logo. Or if you want to hear how CNN spins it, after right-wing backlash, Cracker Barrel says it will get rid of its new logo. Well, that's one way of presenting it. Last week, Cracker Barrel received a barrage of criticism when it unveiled its modernized logo, which got rid of the namesake barrel and the old-timer figure. Some loyal fans feared the 56-year-old chain was drifting too far from its roots, and the company's shares nosedived more than 12% days after the announcement. So what happened yesterday, Trump had released a statement earlier in the day saying Cracker Barrel should go back to the old logo, admit a mistake based on customer response, the ultimate poll, and manage the company better than ever before. They got $1 billion worth of free publicity if they play their cards right. Very tricky to do, but a great opportunity. Make Cracker Barrel a winner again. Well, yesterday, they released a statement saying, we thank our guests for sharing your voices and love for Cracker Barrel. We said we would listen, and we have. Our new logo is going away, and our old timer will remain. It's interesting, too, because, and I know it's their job, but when the CEO was on, I think it was on an interview with Michael Strahan, saying, no, overwhelmingly, it's been positive. And you look around and you go, it doesn't seem overwhelmingly positive. Maybe within the boardroom, but I think stocks would say different. I think the consumer and the customer would say different. The president's demand sent shares in the embattled company soaring more than 6% yesterday after he released that statement, after the company's valuation shed $100 million last week following the logo's release. Trump added, remember, it's just a short period of time I made the United States of America the hottest country anywhere in the world. 1 year ago, it was dead. Good luck. Some of the things that people, well, they disliked, they thought it was going woke for some reason. I don't really understand that, but I do think one of the big problems was they were trying to rebrand inside as well, kind of paint the places up to be brighter, like a newer farmhouse. Trump weighed in on the controversial remodeling a day after Cracker Barrel issued an apology saying, we won't always get everything right the first time, but we'll keep testing, learning, and listening to our guests and employees. So this was about the remodeling, not even the logo. So they were being attacked on 2-3 fronts. Then a video of the old-timer logo, whose name is Uncle Herschel, went viral after they had an animated mascot singing "Go Woke, Go Broke." And in the song, an Uncle Herschel lookalike saying, why do brands insist on committing to suicide? Cracker Barrel, you could have left me on the logo and just let it ride. So I noticed, and after right-wing backlash. Well, we learned that Cracker Barrel's CEO kind of dismissed early warnings from top investors on this rebranding, calling it obvious folly, because this really wasn't in any way to make money. What, you know, I mean, I guess you could say rebranding kind of, but that's, I don't know. When you have a solid brand, is that the direction you want to go? Are they trying to get 20-somethings as compared to their loyal customer base? Cracker Barrel's new CEO, Julie Fels-Massino, got on the phone with investors and unveiled the details of a strategic transformation plan her board of directors had approved. The first of 5 pillars in the plan would be refining and evolving the brand across all touch points. That was back on May 16, 2024, when this all started to take shape. Over the next months, Massino and her board of directors dismissed at least 4 warnings by a top investor, Sardar Biglari, that the rebranding was obvious folly, even filing it with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Cracker Barrel is not a broken brand, but it has a broken board, he wrote in a scathing 7-page letter to shareholders. He laid out his criticism in a 120-page slide deck presentation with the title, Cracker Barrel is in Crisis, next to the company's longtime logo. Wow. On that call back in May of last year, Massino announced she'd hire a new leading branding agency to refine and strengthen positioning to delight existing and new guests. But that Biglari, who spoke out on this, said he didn't buy the corporate gobbledygook. So anyway, they were warned. But I woke up this morning checking my email, and sure enough, from the Office of Communications of the White House, I received an email, which is very typical. They send a lot of emails. Congratulations, Cracker Barrel, wrote, or it's written in the subject line. And they shared a truth post from President Trump where last night he said, quote, congratulations, Cracker Barrel, on changing your logo back to what it was. All of your fans very much appreciate it. Good luck into the future. Make lots of money, and most importantly, make your customers happy again. It seems as if the CEO maybe bit off more than she could chew, no pun intended, and wasn't open to questions and criticisms, because it sounds like their top investor was saying this was, quote, and I quote, obvious folly. Releasing that 7-page letter, realizing that there was no upside to this, only down. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said President Trump has unmatched business instincts and an uncanny ability to understand what the American people want. Cracker Barrel is a great American company, and they made a great decision to trust in Trump. Now, the exact statement released by Cracker Barrel was, we thank our guests for sharing your voices and love of Cracker Barrel. We said we would listen, and we have. Our new logo is going away, and our old timer will remain. At Cracker Barrel, it's always been and always will be about serving up delicious food, warm welcomes, and the kind of country hospitality that feels like family. As a proud American institution, our 70,000 hardworking employees look forward to welcoming you to our table soon. I do have to say, think of the cost to this. Because at the end of the day, when the smoke cleared, there's nothing. We're back to May of last year when this whole process began, and they're only worse off. They're not better off. And now they have the same logo. I don't know what the redesign of some of the restaurants will look like. I don't know where that's headed. But I think they realized no matter how many times they tried to spin it and say, no, people are really liking this, it just got overwhelming. Paula Batura, before we wrap up on this topic, but I'll keep reading your comments, saying, this is on Fox News, welcome home, Uncle Herschel. Critics have pounced on social media, suggesting the company was caving to right-wing pressure, including a call earlier in the day from President Trump, who encouraged the company to reverse course before it was too late. So now you have a backlash on the other side because of this logo change. Cracker Barrel should go back to the old logo, and we know what Trump said. I already read that. Excuse me. Company executives need to go beyond restoring the logo and acknowledge that Cracker Barrel was built on moral, common sense values. Attributing the company's decision to Trump's remarks about the logo misses the larger concern. Returning Uncle Hochul to his chair besides the barrel is a start. But if that's where the company retreat ends, Cracker Barrel will continue to sell fewer biscuits, fried chicken, and Mama's pancakes in the years to come. The new Cracker... let me take a step back. Sadly, today's Cracker Barrel isn't your aunt or uncle's wholesome highway pit stop it once was. In recent years, This is coming from Fox News. Cracker Barrel has sponsored Pride events, partnered with the Human Rights Campaign to fan and normalize pronoun nonsense, warmly embrace corporate DEI efforts. In the process, its stock prices has dropped from a high of $147.91 back in 2021 to the mid-50s today. Corporate rebranding and cultural firestorms often flow from internal ideological ignorance and progressive arrogance to outside firms obsessed with forcing their distorted and often woke worldview on everyone else. Reports now suggest Cracker Barrel dismissed or ignored earlier signs from investors or warnings from investors, like I mentioned earlier. If this story sounds familiar, it's because we've seen it before. From Coca-Cola's New Coke fiasco in the 80s to Bud Light's tone deaf campaign celebrating Dylan Mulvaney, there's precedent for corporations committing unforced errors. It took decades for Bud Light to cultivate its brand and just 32 hours to destroy it. While the companies say the man in the logo is a composite, Uncle Herschel was a real man and a real uncle of Danny Evans, the company's founder. Cracker Barrel even calls him the soul of Cracker Barrel. He was a salesman who frequented general stores all over the South and was known to sit a spell and visit with customers. At company headquarters in Lebanon, Tennessee, there's even a statue of him standing beside an empty bench as if to invite you to sit and converse. So it goes through some history of Coca-Cola and some of the other mistakes that were made. The late David Ogilvy, nicknamed the father of advertising, knew well the lure and idiocy of trying to fix something that isn't broken. Quote, it takes uncommon guts to stick to one style in the face of all the pressure to come up with something new every 6 months. It is tragically easy to be stampeded into change. Cracker Barrel underestimated the emotional tug and power of its familiar logo. In a world of constant change, Herschel remained a constant. In an economy that seems to celebrate the hard-charging, the old man represents those who are comfortable and content, a reprieve from the chaos and noisy churn everywhere else. Company executives need to go beyond restoring the logo and acknowledge that Cracker Barrel was built on moral common sense values. They should politely pivot from politically correct corporate silliness and simply embrace the wholesome, sensible, and timeless standards that have driven the company's success: truth, fairness, kindness, respect, and good old-fashioned hospitality. The lesson here is simple. If you don't want your company to go broke, resist the urge to go woke. Cracker Barrel says it's listening, but time will tell who the company is listening to in the days to come. So that's Paula Batura, Vice President of Communications of Focus on the Family and founder of the 4-8 Media Network. And that's at Fox News. All right, we'll read some of your comments when we come back. We're just a tad bit late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Did you know that children growing up with poor air quality have smaller lungs and higher rates of asthma than children that grow up with good air quality? And unfortunately, poor communities have poor air quality. IQ Air Foundation is working to change this. Today, the IQ Air Foundation provides filtration technology to schools with poor air quality through our Clean Air for Kids program. Our goal is to help over 50,000 school children every year breathe over 90% cleaner air indoors, helping to level the playing field, reduce barriers to learning, reduce sick days, and increase test scores. Mitigating poor air quality is key to environmental justice. Help Clean Air for Kids reach more children at IQAirFoundation.org.
We've had so many wonderful memories as a family. Dropping Shelly off at school, I prayed he wouldn't get stuffed in a gym bag. Missy might have been the one in Little League.
I'm asking the Lord to watch over my little girl. Well, while you're at it, ask him for a win. I got money on this.
But Georgie is the one who threw us the real curveball.
I got a girl pregnant.
Oh, no. Are you kidding me? We may not be perfect, but to me, we have the perfect family.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Check out our newsreels and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. We got great comments coming in. Just curious, how many more mature male viewers think Cracker Barrel's logo change suggested ageism? Oh, interesting. I had not heard that one. So to our more mature male viewers, do you think the original change was because of ageism? Good point. Comment from a different viewer. It was also hated on the far left. This CEO was able to unite the right and left. Maybe they were onto something. Yeah, and I didn't really highlight that enough. This is in regards to Cracker Barrel. Now they're being, just like that CNN piece, caving to right-wing pressure or caving to Trump's pressure. They're showing it as Cracker Barrel caved. I mean, that's the word they're using, to Trump. And that's not obviously a positive to the left. So yes, the left and the right were united at one moment in their anger at Cracker Barrel. You raised a very good point. But they're seeing it as capitulation to the Trump administration. And so yeah, I could think of another word other than caved. All right, comment from a different viewer. I wonder if Cracker Barrel already signed contracts for the remodel and what ripple effects. That's a great question. Think of how much this cost them for nothing. Just, well, free publicity, I suppose. Guess they made enough back on the stock rebound and free publicity. Maybe McDonald's can threaten to take away the golden arches. Yes, and get all of the all that free coverage. I think you raise a good point. Did I miss one in there? Yes, they were. You name it. Yep, the far left and right. I kind of mentioned that one point. Okay, one last comment. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Isn't it odd that the press would ask Trump's opinion on the, quote, engagement of the century? Their words, of course. I'm sure that's in reference to Kelsey and Swift, where I know I am perhaps the only program on television to not have already talked about it for 41 minutes, where they may be looking for a gotcha moment. I didn't hear what Kamala thought about the big news, and they love her. Their hate for him has probably made him the most recognized name in history. I'm not really sure if that's what they were hoping for. No, I mean, they helped get him elected unbeknownst to them. I mean, the coverage that they gave him originally back in 2016, they thought he was a joke. They thought he was a clown. And they loved the fact that he received the Republican nomination because they knew that they could attack him. And they were showing his rallies, just laughing at him, saying, look at these buffoons and the support for Trump and how crazy he is. Little did they know, by showing those rallies, people started going, wait a minute, he's really got something to say here. I'm kind of interested in what he has to say now. And they thought it was all a clown show. They didn't realize what they were actually doing. So yeah, that's been throughout his whole time. But I do believe that was probably a gotcha moment because they're actually criticizing him for that cabinet, I guess you could call it speech. They're criticizing him because it was something, it was a long time, but it was basically a press conference for something like 3.5 hours. We're going to talk about it a little bit later on in the program, but they're criticizing, calling it rambling. I mean, President Trump giving a press conference for 3+ hours when Joe Biden couldn't even give a certain speech. Remember, we had that story a couple of weeks ago because there's too many steps to go to the speech. I mean, the media has exposed themselves time and time again, but it's so glaring after 4 years of kid glove treatment. Even some on the left were saying at the time that, you know, it's hard to take you seriously when you gave no coverage to Biden's mental decline, but now everything Trump does, you're laser-like focused. So yes, of course I had to ask him about the engagement of the century, trying to trick him, trying to play a little gotcha, but he had an answer for it. We're going to tell you about that in just a little bit. I promised we'd get to some things that are updates so far. They pretty much, except for that one story, been all updates. Another one is about the executive order on flag burners. Radio host Charlemagne, there's been some back and forth between Charlemagne and Trump. He slammed the flag burners, arguing they don't give a darn, we'll say, about America. Now, Charlemagne is a self-described Democrat. He questioned the motives of protesters who burned the flag. I understand it's free speech, but it's just like, I always wondered, why would you want to do that if you are an American, if you're a patriot, you know? I mean, if you consider yourself a patriot, like, why would you want to burn the American flag? You want a country to actually be better, and you want the country to, you know, the flag to symbolize what the country stands for. You want that country to actually stand up for that flag and to stand up for the screed that it puts out there. That's what you actually want, right? I don't know. It just reminds me of like when people, you know, burn the jerseys of their favorite player just because they're mad, but you still love the team. So one listener called in arguing that a ban on flag burning is a violation of constitutionally guaranteed free speech. And he said, I agree, but what I was saying, I understand free speech, of course. I'm all for free speech. But it's just wild to burn the flag, but then use the Constitution to say you can burn the flag. Because burning the flag means you don't give a darn about America. So if you don't give a darn about America, you shouldn't care about the Constitution either. The caller pressed his objection further, saying, for the president to tell me that I can't do anything in the country means he is a dictator. Otherwise, the Constitution doesn't matter. Charlemagne, reiterating, I'm not agreeing with you what the president is doing. I'm just simply saying, let's look at all sides of it. Because the American flag symbolizes a symbol of freedom. And we want this country to uphold that freedom that it promises. So it's just weird to burn the flag. But then still point to the Constitution, democracy, and freedom and say that's what we want. I do think it's interesting because I read a piece, and I don't have it in front of me. We're going to just quickly go over a couple other things on the flag burning. But the thought was that Trump is trying to bait Democrats into defending the burning of the flag, just like he's baited them in to essentially defending criminals when it comes to the National Guard and trying to justify high crime rates. So there was a piece, and it wasn't really a piece, it was just kind of a statement, that someone believes that he's just doing this to get Democrats to embrace flag burning. But to Charlemagne's point, it's kind of like we've seen the protests at the National Guard in Washington, D.C., where neighborhoods, people are coming out at 8 o'clock at night and beating on pots and pans to show their displeasure. I don't understand that, just like I don't understand blocking roadways and affecting people's lives. You know, if your dog starts barking at 8 o'clock because of pots and pans and your kid wakes up, or maybe you're trying to go to sleep because you got to work in the morning, that doesn't bring someone to your cause. Just like if you're going to say, I want to make America a better place because I believe X, Y, and Z, to prove I'm going to burn the American flag, doesn't bring people over to your cause, to Charlemagne's point. So I thought that was interesting. Jonathan Turley says, we got to go, that Trump's bold flag burning crackdown sets up a big fight down the road. We'll tell you about that in just a moment. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Is this your mom?
Yes.
And that's your dad?
Nope.
I'm the father.
Even if you're the father, you're lying. My family does not like my boyfriend.
Solid family.
I've had enough of this. I'm not your mommy.
Now you're just talking crazy.
Don't do that. I'm not your auntie, I'm your mother.
Can't cross mama and come in here and get treated nice. Your case is dismissed, and so are you.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Just quickly wrapping up our discussion on the executive order on flag burning. Jonathan Turley says, of course, the new order is a fight Trump likely believes he cannot lose. Even if he loses in court, he is seen as fighting a practice that remains uniformly unpopular with American voters. However, we should focus on defending the rights that define us as Americans. Free speech is the very right that distinguishes us from even close allies, the indispensable and quintessential American right. It'd be a tragic irony to protect the symbol of our nation by destroying the core rights that symbol represents. And we've seen a lot of backlash from conservatives on this. Eric Erickson saying, while I agree with the sentiment, it's unfortunately well-settled constitutional law that burning the flag is a matter of free speech, and the executive does not get to create crime. So your thoughts on that? We didn't really talk about that much yesterday. We do have a couple updates here on ICE. In the next hour, we're going to hear from Karen. She sent in her quote of the week, so don't miss out on that. According to, and there's so much negative coverage of Trump and what he's doing, ICE agents are burnt out and struggling with Trump's immigration crackdown. This coming from the Independent out of the United Kingdom, but there was also another outlet, and I don't have it in front of me, that had the same sentiment. ICE, a driving force behind Trump's sweeping crackdown on migrants, is grappling with widespread burnout and frustration among its personnel. Bolstered by record funding and new latitude for raids, staff are contending with long hours and growing public outrage over arrests. Let me ask, there was never any pieces like this about, let's say, for instance, the NYPD after bail reform came out, when they were put in serious harm's way. It was never police. They wanted to fund the police. In this case, have we seen, we've seen a lot of coverage of ICE. It doesn't seem like they're having any problem recruiting. It doesn't seem like they've been resting on their laurels. They've been very active. So is this a piece based on one anonymous source type scenario? Well, let's see how many people they actually got. 2 current and 9 former ICE officials have said agents are struggling to keep pace with the administration's aggressive enforcement agenda. So out of all U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers, they found 2 current and 9 former that said agents are getting tired. While all interviewed officials backed immigration enforcement in principle, they criticized the Trump administration's push for high daily arrest quotas. These have led to the detention of thousands with no criminal record, long-term green card holders, legal visa holders, and even some U.S. citizens. Most current and former ICE officials requested anonymity, fearing retaliation. Your thoughts on that? Now, video of Kilmar Abrego Garcia has gone viral. He was detained by ICE, but it just went viral because of what he said while he was being arrested. The alleged MS-13 gang member slammed the, and I quote, corrupt government as he was being hauled away in cuffs. The 30-year-old El Salvador native is facing the possibility of being deported to Uganda after he was detained by immigration officials in Baltimore. The Department of Homeland Security shared a video of him shuffling through the ICE field office in the moment after he was detained. DHS wrote alongside the footage, he doesn't belong here. He won't be staying here. America is a safer nation without this MS-13 gangbanger in it. Good riddance. So as he was being led away in handcuffs, saying it's a corrupt government. Speaking of ICE, we know that they're, well, all right, I do have 2 updates on ICE. I thought that was it. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here. Getting ready to wrap up hour number 1. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Having a safe home is essential to many aspects of our lives. From a sense of community and safety, to physical and mental health, to economic security and independence. Most homes in our communities are not accessible and are not designed to accommodate the changes that come with age. including the risk of falling. The Older Adults Home Modification Program helps reduce the risk of falls, improves safety, and increases accessibility and independence. Through this program, Rebuilding Together works with older adults to provide no-cost preventative home repairs so our neighbors can safely age in place in the homes and communities they love. To learn more, visit rebuildingtogether.org/safeathome.
An albino buffalo was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bust.
Thousands lined the pier at Seneca Harbor. Race weekend brought thousands to Watkins Glen International.
Hundreds and Horseheads joined other cities around the country on Saturday for the No Kings protest.
Day one of the National Glider Competition, severe flooding has caused major disruptions in parts of Steuben County.
Throughout the year, prison reform has become a priority around New York State.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to read Karen's quote, but let's go to some viewer comments right now. Mark writes in, I believe if you want to burn the American flag, you don't deserve to live here. It's un-American. Thank you, Mark. Sergeant Dave writes in, good morning, Sergeant Dave. Do you think that the normal, hardworking American cares about the Swift-Kelsey engagement? I don't think so. And I'm going to continue with your comment. You're exactly right. This is very reminiscent to me of when Kamala Harris had like Beyonce come to one of her rallies. And I thought, boy, the person that's struggling to get by under Biden's economy, they can't put groceries on the table. They see something like that and they go, I can't even afford a ticket to Beyonce's concert if I wanted to. Why do I have to hear about this nonstop? Same with Swift-Kelsey. That's why I think we've done a pretty darn good job of not bringing it up on this program. For better or for worse, I know you can get that information elsewhere. It's like when you go and you wake up in the morning and you see all the coverage of the Grammys or the Emmys or whatever. Yes, you can hear all about Swift-Kelsey, just not as much here. And I think that's healthy. I think we all are going to need some respite from that topic. But continuing with what Sergeant Dave had to say, on the flag burning, I am a USMC Marine Vietnam vet. Well, thank you, of course, Sergeant Dave, for your service. I fly my flags until they start to shred, then I take them out back to my burn pile and salute them till they are ashes. I believe this is appropriate. Thank you, Sergeant Dave. Where do you live that you have a burn pile? Good for you. They're becoming more rare. I do appreciate it, though. The sentiment. And of course, thank you for your service. Oh, we got so many other comments coming in. Yeah, because isn't there like a rule in New York? I know burn barrels aren't allowed, but I don't know what the rules are. I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble, Dave. I'm jealous is what I'm saying. I'd love to have a burning barrel. So remember when do we have enough time on this? No, we don't. So we're going to read some comments when we come back. Boy, time went quickly in this hour. My goodness. We got a couple quick things on ice, and then I've got to tell you about the 3-hour and 16-minute, I guess you could call, press conference speech by the president. Of course, the media presenting it as a ramble, as a negative thing, that the president of the United States is so transparent, coming off the heels of 4 years of no transparency. We're going to talk about it, but stay with us. We'll be right back with hour number 2 after this.
In today's world, securing your business is more important than ever. Protected with Boss Security's state-of-the-art alarm systems. When seconds matter, trust the experts. Boss Security is proud to safeguard local businesses across the Twin Tiers. Contact Boss Security today.
What better start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
When I'm in Elmira and Corning, I watch Big Fox.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or
It's hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live and very proudly from the Hesselson's studio this morning. We've got a lot of viewer comments, and after these viewer comments, we're going to read you Karen's quote of the week. Karen has been kind enough to send in her quote this week. But first, comment from a viewer. Albany Democrats are turning New York into ground zero for their radical war on natural gas and propane, forcing a housing nightmare onto families. Their ban on natural gas hookups in new homes like this one takes effect in just months. Is this a quote from someone else, out of curiosity, this voter? But that's why I introduced the Energy Choice Act to block states and local governments from banning specific energy sources like natural gas or propane in new construction. We need to ban the bans so New York families can decide what kind of energy they want to use in their home. Oh, that's from Congressman Langworthy, right? Yeah. Okay. I didn't know. I didn't realize that you were sending in a quote. But thank you. That's great. I don't know if I saw the press release, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. All right. Comment from a different viewer. Freedom of speech is saying anything you want to say freely, not doing anything you want. There are always people that claim to be conservatives that are not. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Trump cabinet meetings are very informative. They are long because they cover a lot of information. They sure do. We're going to tell you about that one. I'm not criticizing it. I think it should be something that the media would be praising for this transparency, but quite the opposite. Hey, look at that. That's a great picture. Thanks so much, Sergeant Dave. Yeah, you do have a nice setup there, don't you? Beautiful view. I know I should have put it on the show, but I'm going to keep it right there. Okay. Karen writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Karen. This week's Karen's quote is inspired by the Trump administration's willingness to do things differently, like reversing failed policy like the no cash bail. It comes from Wendy Long, the two-time Republican nominee for New York Senate 2012, in 2016. She unfortunately lost. She was great. When she ran against Gillibrand and destroyed her in that debate, in full disclosure, I had Wendy Long on numerous times on my program. She came around the area so much. This was back in radio days. She came around the area so much. We got to know each other pretty well just because we were at so many events. So I hadn't thought about Wendy Long in a long time. She was a great lady. She was a great interview. She writes, this was a quote, from Wendy Long. If we could be sure of anything, it's that the immense challenges faced by our country and our nation cannot be solved by the same people in the same offices, casting votes for the same failed policies. What a great line. I'm going to read that one again. And Wendy Long was brilliant. This again from Wendy Long, sent in by our good friend Karen. If we can be sure of anything, it's that the immense challenges faced by our country and our nation cannot be solved by the same people in the same offices, casting votes for the same failed policies. And boy, that describes New York in a nutshell, doesn't it? The Chuck Schumers, the Gillibrands. Thank you for that, Karen. I do appreciate it. A man was arrested after yelling threats at Texas ICE facility. They had a bomb in his backpack, is what he yelled. Now, Unfortunately, we saw some politicians making scenes at ICE facilities. We learned, I believe that piece was from Axios, the Democrats were saying, Democrat representatives, that their constituents were encouraging them to get violent, to get aggressive, to get arrested, to draw blood was one of the exact quotes. Well, a man was arrested after he yelled bomb threats at security officers outside a Dallas Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility on Monday evening. Bratton Dean Wilkinson, 36 years old, arrived at the entrance of the Dallas ICE field office at 6:37 p.m. and told security officers he had a bomb in his backpack. Wilkinson then showed officers a device on his wrist that he claimed was a detonator. Man, he is really lucky that he was just arrested. A shelter-in-place order was promptly issued at the facility, and local police and bomb squad members responded. The scene was cleared roughly 30 minutes later. Also on the ICE front, and then we're going to move along to that press conference. Remember that Wisconsin judge that was accused of helping a man dodge ICE? Because the person was going to be arrested, and she took him through like the chamber doors or something. She loses her bid to drop the charges. A Wisconsin judge accused of helping a man evade arrest by ICE agents lost an attempt yesterday to throw out the Trump administration's case against her. The prosecution of Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan has highlighted the push by President Trump's administration to confront state and local authorities who resist his sweeping immigration crackdown. Democrats have accused the administration of trying to make a national example of Dugan to chill judicial opposition to its deportation efforts. She was arrested at the county courthouse in April and indicted on federal charges in May. She quickly filed a motion to dismiss the charges, arguing that she was acting in her official capacity as a judge, is therefore immune from prosecution. Wow, is that how that works? So she was letting him evade arrest, and that is by definition, in her mind, her official capacity as judge, doing her job. U.S. District Judge Lynn Elderman on Tuesday rejected that argument and upheld the July recommendation of a magistrate judge who also ruled that the case could proceed. Elderman said, the dispute boils down to Dugan arguing that there is a general rule of immunity for judges from prosecution, while some limited exceptions, while the government argues that the cited exceptions are simply examples of types of prosecutions that have been brought. A review of the relevant history reveals the government has the better of the argument. So that's just an update. We'll keep you continued updates on it. I understand. Well, I don't know. I can't see exactly what's next on the time frame, but again, just an update from a story we brought to you in the past. Wow, look at all these comments coming in this morning. Okay, so the media is presenting Trump's very transparent cabinet meeting, that lasted 3 hours and 16 minutes. The Daily Beast, now keep in mind the Daily Beast is far left, but they said Trump, 79, flirts awkwardly with Bondi in 3 hour, 16-minute cabinet ramble. The president veered into an awkward bit as he said looks were not important in politics, and then suggested that if he praised Attorney General Pam Bondi's physical attributes, his career would be over. Aren't they kind of proving his point that that's what they're being critical of? I look at Pam, I would never say she's beautiful because that's going to be the end of my political career. After the awkward compliment, Trump lurched from subject to subject without interruption as members of the cabinet listened and occasionally laughed at his remarks. At one point, he appeared to mix up the drug companies Eli Lilly and Johnson & Johnson while claiming he was cutting prescription drug prices for Americans by 1,500%. Okay, so they take 3 hours and 16 minutes, and they're trying to suggest that if there's any little flub in there, any kind of mistake, they're trying to insinuate there's more to this. They're trying as much as they possibly can to put some type of mental health problem on Trump as well as physical health. That if you go to certain outlets, certain media outlets, that has been the refrain. That's what the narrative they're trying to push. And this comes off the heels of 4 years of Biden and the lack of coverage and the covering up, which I still think is one of the biggest scandals, if not biggest scandals in presidential history, the covering up of Biden's mental decline by not just the people around him, by the media. You know, Joe Scarborough's argument was after that book came out by Jake Tapper, well, I never saw it personally. Did you have to see it personally? What about the endless amounts of videos that people, private citizens, were reporting on at these events. But we don't have to relitigate that. But what I'm saying is now the media wants us to believe that, and of course they're just trying to win you over with the headline ramble, cabinet ramble, just trying to convince you that it was nonsense. We're going to go through, and it's from another farther left outlet, but some of the big takeaways from the 3-hour, 16-minute cabinet meeting. Flanked by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth, Trump talked for just over 48 minutes, changing topics from the prices of fuel and eggs to Zuckerberg's data center in Louisiana to turning water supplies on in California, the unfair prices of pharmaceutical drugs, his dislike of windmills, slamming the fake media, and his plans to widen the use of military in the United States, including Baltimore and Chicago, and bringing back the death penalty in Washington, D.C. At one point, he changed tack from transgender athletes to poke fun at the age of Chuck Schumer, saying he looked like he was 100 years old. Perhaps, and this is what I'm saying with the lying media, perhaps the only topic the 79-year-old president didn't cover were concerns about his health, nor was he asked by reporters about the bruises on his hands or his cankles. 79 years old. Has there ever been anything like that written for a Democrat president? There wasn't for Biden when there was a lot of opportunity to do so. He did, however, launch, but that's to insinuate that for a man who just gave a 3-hour and 16-minute essentially interview and to suggest there's health concerns there. But this is the narrative they're trying to push to plant that seed, because they refuse to talk about Biden, but they saw it was one of the reasons why Trump dominated a landslide. And so now they're trying to pin the same problems Biden had on Trump. He did, however, launch attacks on Joe Biden, as per usual, California Governor Gavin Newsom, Maryland Governor Wes Moore, and the slob, he said, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. I'm willing to go to Chicago, which has big trouble, but we have a governor that refuses to admit he has problems. Baltimore's Wes Moore was telling me, I want to walk with the president. First, you've got to clean up your crime, because I'm not walking in Baltimore right now. Well, the 5 takeaways that this outlet had, Sean James writes, I think it's Mediate, so keep this in mind, 3-hour, 16-minute cabinet meeting, that's longer than the movie The Godfather. Think of that. 3 hours, so depending on which outlet you go to, 3 hours and 16 minutes or 3 hours and 17 minutes, a time which viewers could have watched The Godfather or The Godfather 3, for that matter, in its entirety. And yes, he did share his thoughts on Kelsey and Swift. I don't want to talk too much about that. But 1, Trump says America would accept a dictator in exchange for less crime. The president said he is not a dictator, but if he was, Americans would accept it if it resulted in a drop in crime. Where's the exact quote? The line is that I'm a dictator, but I stop crime. So a lot of people say, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. Trump also claims that MSNBC is worse than violent gangs. Quote, I'll tell you, they showed one scene where a bunch of trained Diaruga guys, or whatever, maybe MS-13, maybe MSDNC, okay? Because to me, they're worse, I think. They're worse. MSNBC maybe is worse than Trey Diaruga. Real scum, real dishonest people. He wished Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce a lot of luck, saying, I think he's a great player, I think he's a great guy, and I think that she's a terrific person, so I wish them a lot of luck. And to one viewer's point, thinking that they were probably trying to trap him or get a gotcha question, asking him about the engagement of the century instead of, giving him a little background. Before, Trump vows to use death penalty in Washington despite it being abolished since 1981, saying if somebody kills somebody in the Capitol, Washington, D.C., we're going to be seeking the death penalty. And that's a very strong preventative, and everybody that heard it agrees with it. I don't know if we're ready for it in this country, but we have it. We have no choice. He also said he is not reversing course on his plan to have 600,000 Chinese students attend American universities, despite some criticism from his supporters. We're getting along very well with China, and I'm getting along very well with President Xi Jinping. I think it's very insulting to say you students can't come here, because they'll go out and they'll start building schools and they will be able to survive it. So with all of that, super criticism over the most transparent presidency we've probably ever seen in our lifetime, having a 3-hour and 17-minute cabinet meeting and press conference. being presented as a negative. That goes to show you how much hatred the media has for Trump. Then they asked the question. I know we got to take a break, so I'm going to ask you. I know we have various demographics on this program. Young voters, according to Bloomberg, young voters who swung right are already regretting it. Trump convinced voters under 35, especially men, to give him a chance. They are souring at what they see. One of the most surprising data points from President Donald Trump's 2024 victory was his strength among young voters. Excuse me. Anyway, I don't want to go through this. So now they're saying that young voters who decided to vote for conservatives and for Trump for the first time, now a major disappointment. They're souring on him. Do you agree with that statement? All right, we covered a lot there. Stay with us. We got to take a short break. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
I'm Christy Kager from Piper Insurance, talking about the real-life savings of people you know. This year, we saved Frank and Barb Vassalo of Corning more than $300 on their insurance. We also insure their business, Rabbit Row Yarns. And we saved Todd and Sarah Strong of Painted Post more than $1,600 on their insurance. We'd love to save you money too. As a local independent insurance agency, we'll shop more than 12 insurance companies to find you a great price with good coverage. Piper Insurance. We make insurance easy.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
You can just keep watching and scrolling, and the world will still feel like it's falling apart.
Widespread missile attacks. Highest hospitalization. Evacuation in the western forced labor.
Or you can take action by joining a movement that's creating a real and lasting change instead. Partnering with communities around the globe to help uproot poverty and plant seeds of hope for a brighter tomorrow. Because at World Vision, we believe that no situation is hopeless. Join a movement that's changing the world for good.
Dante Brown, Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments, shall we? It's ironic we had a president we never saw or heard. Now Trump brings transparency. The Democrats cry. Guess they prefer to bury heads in the sand and let the party decide everything for them, like nominate Kamala. Yeah, they don't want to have a say. Just let the powers that be control them. Comment from a different viewer. I'm curious if New York will help bail out the electric bus company that went bankrupt. If not, how can they keep the mandates in place for electric school buses if there's no place to buy them? No, that's a fair question. I had not heard of it. I guess I missed the electric bus company that went bankrupt. I'll have to do some more research on that. Ken writes in, of the 195 recognized countries in the world, 4 allow flag burning: the U.S., Australia, Canada, and Denmark. So, 191 countries believe that honoring the flag of their nation is paramount to a nation that is proud of their heritage and sovereignty. It is no surprise, it is no surprise that Democrats want flag burning to be allowed and even praised. It is just another way to divide the nation so that they can push through their horrible ideology. Thank you very much, Ken. I see some other comments coming in. We'll get to those after the next break, which isn't going to take too long. So we have the pardon me, guys, in the back of the throat. So we saw the criticism of Trump for being transparent. gives a cabinet meeting for 3 hours and 16 or 17 minutes, depending on which outlet you go to. They called it ramble. They criticized it. Then, and this is something we've talked about on the program in the past, and I think it's worth mentioning. You have Melania Trump, who, before becoming First Lady, was a model, as you can clearly tell. She was a model. And yet you never see her get the praise and the front covers of magazines like past First Ladies, like Michelle Obama, Dr. Jill. There was a complete lack of coverage from places that you would think would very much like to have her on the front cover of their fashion magazines. Well, Vanity Fair's new boss reportedly wants First Lady Melania Trump to grace the glossy magazine's coveted cover. Now, from a purely business standpoint, this would be brilliant. You would be bringing in probably a different group, maybe someone that doesn't normally buy Vanity Fair. You'll have people buy them just because they want to support the First Lady. And let's face it, magazines are struggling in general, so it sounds like a wise business model. But the staffers don't agree. One staff member actually saying they were going to walk out the blanking door if they go ahead with it. The fashion magazine's global editor-director, Mark Giudici, has floated the possibility of putting President Trump's wife on the cover, the First Lady of the United States of America, on the cover as he tries to make his mark in his newly minted role. But the mere thought of having the former model as a cover girl sparked fierce backlash from the far left staffers. So having just one picture on the cover of the First Lady of the United States of America caused chaos behind the scenes at magazines that are struggling to survive. I will walk out the blanking door and half my staff will follow me. One senior editor fumed to the Daily Mail. We're not going to normalize this despot and his wife. We're just not going to do it. We're going to stand for what's right, said another unidentified staffer. Normalized. Boy, I hadn't heard that one in a while. That was one they used to censor conservatives for a long time. So normalize this despot and his wife. If I have to work bagging groceries at Trader Joe's, I'll do it. If Giudici puts Melania on the cover, half of the editorial staff will walk out. I guarantee it. So keep this in mind if you buy Vanity Fair. It doesn't sound like you're getting a fair and balanced magazine. Others, meanwhile, dismissed the outrage, insisting there's no way employees would give up such a prestigious job out of protest, in an industry that is struggling. It's all talk, one employee said. If they put her on the cover, people will protest and gripe about it. But I don't see anyone actually quitting such a prestigious job over that. Now, she was on the cover back in February of 2017, but that was for Vanity Fair Mexico. An employee said, honestly, there will be people who push back, but it's ultimately Mark's decision. He's the one who will sink or swim over that choice, not the rest of us. Melania was notably excluded from Vanity Fair and Condé Nast's Vogue during Trump's first administration. That's in sharp contrast to Michelle Obama, who graced Vogue's cover 3 times while she was First Lady. Despite the snub, Melania has previously said she has no interest in appearing on the cover. Look, I've been there on the covers, on the cover of Vogue, on the covers of many magazines before. We have so many other important things to do than to be on the cover of any magazine. I think that life would not change for anybody if I was on the cover. Just to show you the bias across the board of what we're dealing with. But I have to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will be right back.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
Is this your mom?
Yes.
And that's your dad?
Nope.
I'm the father.
Even if you're the father, you're lying.
My family does not like my boyfriend.
Solid family.
I've had enough of this. I'm not your mommy.
Now you're just talking crazy.
Don't do that. I'm not your auntie, I'm your mother.
Can't cross mama and come in here and get treated nice. Your case is dismissed and so are you.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. This person writes in, young conservatives will always be conservative. They clearly have done their research as well as understand U.S. history. Thank you. And that was in reference to Bloomberg suggesting that young people that voted for Trump are souring on him. Comment from a different viewer. How could young voters possibly be disappointed with their vote, given that they knew and are getting exactly the agenda that they voted for? And that's such a great point, because that's one thing even I would say Trump haters would have to admit, that Trump makes good on his campaign promises or is always working to make good on those campaign promises. I know we're used to politicians saying one thing and then getting in and doing another. It's almost a stereotype. Not with Trump. You got exactly what you voted for. So I'm not sure how you could be upset. I agree with you. I think it's just media hyping up this hatred for Trump, which they're pushing nonstop. Ken writes in, I think Brandon Johnson, mayor of Chicago, has finally had a good idea. He said that the answer to curbing crime is to provide more low-income housing. We could easily do that in New York, open up the prisons that were closed and provide the criminals free housing in those locked cells. Thank you very much. Speaking of that, let's speak of that. Gianno Caldwell writes that Trump needs to deploy the National Guard to Chicago immediately. Chicago, which Trump has aptly said is a killing field right now, should be a candidate for the National Guard. Those forces should include ATF, DEA, and FBI agents and other Department of Justice resources, as well as federalized National Guard troops if necessary. It's high time to act against the dereliction of duty we've seen from Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker. The results of the D.C. takeover already speak for themselves. There have been no murders in Washington in nearly 2 weeks, and other crimes are also way down. We've seen countless video interviews with D.C. residents of all ages, especially in the black community, expressing gratitude to Trump for making them feel much better. In response to Trump's threat to federalize Chicago, Pritzker said, Mr. President, do not come to Chicago. You are neither wanted here or needed here. It is illegal, it is unconstitutional, it is un-American. He also claimed Trump is doing this for theatrics. He wants to create chaos. There is not an emergency in Chicago, nothing that calls for troops on the street. Likewise, Johnson was demanding more federal resources for public safety, but complained that an unsolicited, unwarranted military takeover is not needed. Deploying National Guard troops across Chicago may not be all the residents want to see. However, when Chicagoans are being senselessly killed every day, it may be warranted as a temporary stopgap measure to literally stop the bleeding while federal, state, and local resources are fully activated to reduce crime. Because this is another example where Trump has painted the Democrats into a corner where they are now defending the high crime rates, saying that they don't need Trump, they don't need the National Guard. Trump says the incompetent Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, who's looking to run in 2028, by the way, saying, where is it here? In a Truth Social, he said Pritzker is incompetent and said that Mayor Johnson is no better, while talking about the Chicago crime statistics. 6 dead and 27 injured from just this weekend. A really deadly weekend in Chicago, 6 dead, 27 hurt, and crime sprees all over the city. Panic-stricken Governor Pritzker says that crime is under control when in fact it is just the opposite. He is an incompetent governor who should call me for help. Mayor Johnson is no better. Make Chicago great again. Now, Hochul did say yesterday, was reported that she spoke to Trump about the National Guard threat and does not know what Trump will do. I don't know what he'll do, she said with a shrug, talking about putting the National Guard. Now, it's tough for Hochul because, remember, Hochul used the National Guard for the subways, to patrol the subways. So it's hard to say, there's precedent for this. I was very gracious. I just said, I'll tell you what, Mr. President, if I think I need help from the National Guard on this stuff I'm already doing, I know where to find them. I had that conversation. I said, Mr. President, I can give you all the data to show that crime is down. It's working. Our policies are working. NYPD is doing their job. That is what she's presenting as she enters into an election year next year. She's presenting that she's been tough on crime and that crime rates are, I guess, healthy in New York. We may talk about that a little bit later on, but I know we don't have a lot of time. But the Post editorial board suggests that Trump won't be sending the National Guard to New York City. Not least because we're taking his suggestions seriously, but not literally. That is, when Trump last week discussed the very real success of his intervention in Washington, he mused that Chicago would be next and then we'll help with New York. Just in case, Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch on Monday reportedly told Attorney General Pam Bondi it's not needed since crime is down and Gotham remains far safer than the other big U.S. cities. Shootings are at an all-time low, while burglaries, robberies, and felony assaults are all trending down too. The Big Apple's main problem is that there is the no bail law, and the state's government's other blows to the justice system, an issue Trump flagged on Monday. Oh, speaking of which, so we know about no bail, we know about the bail reforms, we know about raise the age, all the things that New York has done to attempt to, and it's working, coddle criminals and tie the hands of law enforcement. There was a piece, here we go, from the Gothamist. Trump targets bail reform and his latest threat to New York's federal funding. Listen to this line by Chris Gilardi. Quote, New York's bail reform law didn't eliminate cash bail and hasn't led to increased crime or recidivism. But the Trump administration is still targeting it. This is another example of statistics lying, if they even have the statistics. New York's bail reform has not seen an increase in crime or recidivism. I would love to ask law enforcement about that, wouldn't you? That is unbelievable that they will continue to push the lie and the narrative. Now, back to the National Guard. Jamie Raskin said that President Donald Trump was trying to militarize our society and intimidate his political opponents by sending the National Guard into cities. Quote, well, it cuts against the deepest principles of this country. I mean, we were focused in opposition to a standing army with a fear of a standing army. And the military is not supposed to be used for ordinary law enforcement purposes. In D.C., he was talking about cleaning up the graffiti and, dealing with the plight of homelessness, which are obviously local, not federal issues. And he's trying to militarize our society, intimidate his political opponents. The whole idea of picking cities based on their partisan leadership is absurd. I mean, there are a lot of Republican cities and towns struggling with crime. Everybody is across the country, always. Crime has always been part of our history, and yet crime is down in D.C., for example. It's at a 30-year low. They keep pushing that lie. It's down in Baltimore. It's down in Chicago. Yeah, no, these places are great. These places are not a care in the world. Isn't it amazing that they can push that narrative? But again, it puts them in a bad optic when their optics make it look as if they're defending the high crime rates. Anyway, Mayor Bill de Blasio, remember him? Former mayor, I should say, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. He said, I think it's always a fair question with Democrats. Are we doing everything that we can constitutionally and appropriate to fight crime? I think the Democrat Party has to look at the issue much more honestly and say, hey, there are some places where we should be doing better. Our leaders should be doing better. That's a different question than whether we should violate the Constitution, use military force in our cities, obviously with some political objectives in mind by the president as well, blah, 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 blah. So the Democrats have to be much more honest with themselves, but look at the policies that we've had here in New York with bail reform, with raise the age, all these things that have led to an increase in crime. No, again, they're telling you there is practically no crime. That's what they want you to believe in New York. But it's like Liz Peek said, Trump pranks Democrats into opposing something they've always claimed to support. Pushed by political allies to follow the anti-Trump playbook, Muriel Bowser's optimism evaporated as she urged residents to make sure we elect a Democrat House so that they have a backstop to the authoritarian push. An authoritarian push that's seen crime in Washington plummet. President Trump is betting that the residents of cities plagued by violence and theft will welcome his assault on crime. He's probably right. Democrats should wise up. Yes, because if you look at Muriel Bowser, I didn't want to go through the whole piece there, but she started off by saying, well, if they want to send people in, we'll work with them and, try to clean up the crime. And then everyone said, whoa, 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 whoa. In her party, you can't do that. You have to be in opposition to Trump at all times. So then she changed her tune. But again, I think to the point, you've seen the videos of residents in some of these areas saying this is the first time we've been able to walk on the streets in forever. Joe Scarborough saying when this first happened that there's so many people that will scream from the rooftops that they don't want the National Guard there, but love the idea that they can go out to eat and walk down the street more than 2 city blocks. So there we are. We got to read your comments when we come back. Rich Lowry does say, though, quickly, Trump's alleged fascist crackdown is finally here. Federal troops are on the streets of major U.S. cities, with almost certainly more on the way. There's no doubt that Trump loves the optics and sense of strength that comes with deploying the National Guard to U.S. cities, while many of his political enemies love the thrill of decrying the arrival of the dystopia they've always warned about. The Guard troops obviously aren't Trump's equivalent of Mussolini's or Hitler's brown shirts, brawlers and enforcers operating outside the law to crush a political party's opponents. They are a well-trained, entirely lawful military force that isn't engaging in street fights or arresting dissent. The Guard's role has mostly been to stand in front of federal buildings and other public landmarks. In Washington, they walk along metro platforms and generally make themselves visible. In short, they've been a benign presence, although still a political flashpoint. For Trump, the Guard deployment are an emblem of the restoration of public order. Nothing says the lawman is back in town quite like Humvees parked in front of Union Station and camouflaged federal troops walking the streets. That the troops are overkill makes them even more potent as a symbol. Trump really means it. That they generate a reaction from his opponents is even better, since it prompts them into attacking a token of lawfulness in places that suffer from disorder. So Trump feels an urge to take the show on a national tour, with Chicago or perhaps Baltimore the next stop. This is a bad idea. D.C. and L.A. present unique circumstances not replicated in other cities. Legally, D.C. is an easy question. Although Congress has granted it home rule, the federal government has power over the district. The President of the United States has direct authority over the D.C. National Guard and can also take control of the city's police department. Constitutionally and legally, Trump is on solid ground. None of that would apply to Chicago or Baltimore. The federal government has no special role in governing them, and politically hostile mayors would maintain full control of their police departments. The emphasis would surely be on resistance to unwelcome federal intrusion rather than reluctant cooperation. True, this was true in L.A. as well, but the riots and obstruction of federal immigration enforcement gave Trump the authority to federalize members of the California National Guard and protect federal assets. So Rich Lowry believes that it's successful but cannot be used in Chicago or Baltimore. All right, we're going to move along, talk a little bit about New York State issues, get to your comments. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
William Mattar has earned a reputation for being a straight shooter.
Because I am a straight shooter.
For being honest.
Here's what we're willing to pay.
Because I am honest.
For winning a lot.
Because we win a lot.
If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, it matters who you hire. It matters in the experience as well as the results. Call William Mattar. Visit WilliamMattar.com.
Sophia A., grade 4, absent, because transportation was absent.
Julio M., grade 6, absent, because Wi-Fi was absent.
Maria J., grade 12, absent, because childcare for siblings was absent.
Jacob O., grade 12, absent, because housing was absent.
Aisha S.,
Olivia H.,
Darren L.,
Cole W.,
Preston L., absent.
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 Because healthcare, anti-bullying,
Mental health support was absent.
We're calling roll on the 15 million absent students.
Their reasons why are very real.
And yet the solution is a present, caring adult to help them along their path.
When communities and schools is present, 99% of our students are present and ready to learn.
In a few words, Urkel, glasses, nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknights at 5 and 5.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A viewer brought this to my attention. Well, let me read a couple comments, and then we'll go to that. Comment from a viewer: the thing with Melania is she actually is achieving her goals in education and health for children and world peace. That is her goal. That's kind of what her statement was when asked about it in the past. We've got real work to do, not be on the cover of a magazine. Coming from a different viewer: I'm still stunned by the words that are used by the press and others speaking about our president. I've disliked many presidents in the past. In fact, very few I voted for were elected. But I always supported them until it was clear that I couldn't because we want what's best for our republic. I just don't understand this ongoing treatment of our president. Thank you very much. I understand this is the worst it's ever been, too. And it's coming off 4 years of such kid glove treatment by the media. This was brought to my attention this morning by a viewer. You can tell Hochul's up for re-election next year. Coming from Syracuse.com, Governor Hochul hits bullseye with hunters and has signed a crossbow bill into law. This coming out, published this morning, right before the program. Hunters across New York are rejoicing after a long fight to make crossbows legally equivalent to other archery equipment. Ended successfully late yesterday when Governor Hochul signed the bill into law. The bill passed the Assembly on June 17th, and it was delivered to Hochul last Friday. Still shocked that got through Albany, in a way. Crossbows are now permitted for hunting big game in any area. Longbows and compound bows are allowed. The law goes into effect immediately. Hunters will need a bow hunter education certificate and an archery privilege to use a crossbow during bow season, which opens September 27th in the northern zone and October 1st in the southern zone. Hunting licenses went on sale earlier this month. Bow hunters' education and testing material can also be found on the website. So there you are. Well, thank you for passing that along. I missed that. I'm surprised it wasn't on Empire Report this morning. And very much could have been. I might have just missed it. Also, because we only want to give you the breaking stories this morning, today is Governor Hochul's birthday. I just see that on Empire Report. There you go. How exciting. All right, let's move along here. Wow. Is this right? Pro Cuomo Super PAC, for mayor, raised a whopping $1.26 million just this past week. All right, how are we doing here? Yes, Governor Hochul is touting her anti-crime results. She's tough on crime, we're being told. She also has mandated anti-discrimination coordinators on New York college campuses. She has signed a landmark piece of legislation requiring Title VI anti-discrimination coordinators on every college campus in New York. This move is part of the governor's ongoing efforts to combat discrimination and ensure a safe learning environment for all students in the state's higher institutions. Well, good, I guess, but where was this for the last, 2-3 years as Jewish students were being harassed and intimidated? Now, also, because we talked about him earlier at the city level, Zohran Mamdani's campaign insists he doesn't believe in, let me take a step back. Zohran Mamdani's mayoral campaign said he doesn't believe in getting rid of all misdemeanor crimes, as the candidate tried to distance himself from the radical National Democratic Socialists of America platform, because he is a member. A spokesman for Mamdani, a DSA member and the keynote speaker at the left wing's group's 2023 convention, insisted that the national organization endorses different policies than the local New York City chapter, which has endorsed the nominee for mayor. Wow, well, that's one way to reduce crime, to get rid of all misdemeanors. So he won't say it on record. His camp did not respond to a request for comment. They will not say on record. A spokesman said that if elected, however, Mamdani taps to run the NYPD would continue to enforce misdemeanor crimes, but refused to go on the record in saying so. The spokesperson stopped short of fully disavowing the far left call to decriminalize all misdemeanors, arguing the national level doesn't represent the ideals backed by the local chapters. Seth Barron says that Zohran Mamdani's mayoral campaign hosted a scavenger hunt Sunday. It was incredibly fun and a great way to engage with actual human beings in real life and learn about our city. That's his pollster speaking, that quote, by the way. His pollster. There's at least 1.5 thousand people in line at the Zohran scavenger hunt. All of 17th Street at Union Square is packed. People are eager to receive the first clue. The report came from a DSA activist who followed Mamdani on every step of his walk down the length of Manhattan before the primary election. If you don't believe either of them, you can listen to Amanda Littman, former Hillary Clinton campaign staffer and the founder of Democrat activist PAC Run for Something. A thing Zohran and his campaign have powerfully tapped into, and that his scavenger hunt captures so perfectly, is that a vast majority of people who live here genuinely love New York City. We wouldn't stay here otherwise. Notice the theme? Sounds a lot like someone's mom insisting that the birthday party egg and spoon races in the rain were a blast. Now, having missed out on the scavenger hunt, it's impossible for me to say whether it was fun or not. Maybe it was the most thrilling event of the summer. But the rhetoric around the day's fun sounds a little forced. It reminds me a lot of another campaign that was supposed to embody fun. The electoral dream team of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz sparked, if you recall, a new politics of joy. Walz publicly thanked the vice president at the time for bringing back the joy. So what this all boils down to is a scary issues that Mamdani supports is what the focus should be, not these fun, spun up, PR-related fun pieces, but what's actually at the bottom of his campaign. We've got to take a short break. Man, a lot of comments coming in this morning. I appreciate it. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Your tap water is delicious.
I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system.
What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
Stu County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. Rick writes in saying, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Rick. Trump tries to oust the Fed governor. The Fed and the government are supposed to operate independent of one another. Trump never plays by the rules or laws. He wants control of the Fed. Let's let Professor Bankruptcy run the Fed. It really makes my day that I get under some people's skin with my expert commentary. Unlike some, I don't get personal and fire barbs back at comments I don't agree with. I thought about doing that, but it's so much more fun irritating the you-know-what out of Trump lovers before 8 o'clock most days. Y'all kick back and soak in the truth. Hard to take it, ain't it? Saw Crime Dog Donald, the dictator, on the tube, talking about lowering crime. He looks like a crime fighter. He is the biggest criminal to ever hold the office. He is having a cabinet meeting today, so he'll be, that was yesterday. Cabinet meeting, so he'll be floating on his superhero pillow after all the minions get done blowing him kisses all afternoon. I find it so hard to be nice when it comes to Ding Dong Don and his following. Fed governor says Trump has no authority to fire her. There's a Roger Houston. Epstein is looming Trump. Can't wait. Have a nice day, y'all. She actually hired a lawyer. I know that. We talked about that in the 6 o'clock hour. She hired Hunter Biden's lawyer, Abby Lawton. That's her last name? I don't know. I forget. Thank you, Ken. Or thank you, Ken. Thank you. I got one from Ken. He's up next. Thank you, Rick. Comment from a different viewer. Wonder how much fudging went on with Governor Hochul's New York State crime report? That's a great question. I think it's very much like the Washington numbers, where everything's going to be 30-year lows. We learned through this process and this experience, it's very easy to manipulate numbers on this because, let's say, heaven forbid, you get robbed. They can move the actual labeling of what the crime is down so it doesn't reach those important statistics of serious crime, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, I'm sure they're not all that accurate. Ken writes in, since Chicago is one of the stops on one of the heroin highways and connected to Mexican cartels that illegally cross both of our borders, I would think that it would be well within President Trump's authority to send in the National Guard to quell the problems. Thank you, Ken. That is a good point. Hey, quickly, Judge ripped into Andrew Cuomo, our former governor, for using $20 million in taxpayer cash to score vindication in the New York City mayoral run. A New York judge tore into former Governor Andrew Cuomo for using millions in taxpayer cash to defend himself against sexual harassment allegations as the now mayoral candidate tries to launder his tarnished public image. The slapdown came as Albany Supreme Court Justice Denise Hartman officially dismissed a lawsuit by Cuomo's one-time executive assistant, Brittany Camiso, against the state, which settled the case for $450,000 last month. Quote, Cuomo has not advanced any viable argument for why the taxpayers of this state should continue to foot the bill for his continued use of civil litigation discovery devices to further his effort to resurrect his public image. Cuomo was a separate party in the case and fought to keep it from being dismissed. He wants taxpayers to continue to pay for these cases. Taxpayers have shelled out at least $20 million as Cuomo fights the sexual harassment cases, according to State Comptroller's Office data, and drew queasy condemnation for his belligerent legal defense, which included seeking one accuser's, we'll say, doctor records. Anyway, we got to take a break. Then wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. So get your last minute comments in. We're going to go through some stories quickly. So stay with us. We will be right back.
Seneca Lake offers you
Breathtaking views, gorgeous waterfalls, award-winning wine, guided kayak tours, boating options, great places to dine, and so much more. Your experience awaits you. Come experience Seneca Lake.
The Nissan Rogue takes hit after hit. Punished under immense pressure. And exposed to excessive wear. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. Now get 0% APR financing for 60 months on the 2025 Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Murano.
Vallis Advisory Services has been building long-term relationships in our community for over 35 years. We pride ourselves in the ability of our teams in wealth management and tax and business to work together to offer coordinated planning services for our clients. The mission of Vallis Advisory Services is to provide specialized wealth management, tax, and business services to help clients meet their personal financial goals. Vallis Advisory Services, Water Street in Elmira. Visit us at vallisinti.com.
Big.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Ball Security and Horsets. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio. 2 comments coming in. I think you commented to it, Rick, that you would get some criticism. You seem to be fine with that. So here we go. One viewer writes in, Rick is a typical Democrat, just wants to be nasty and it's not about the issues. Thank you. And final comment on that. I'm going to cough, excuse me. I would like to ask Rick what his top 2 biggest problems he has with President Trump's policies in 2 words. All right. DNC members rally around the pro-DEI resolution. That was at the Democratic National Committee summer meeting. They reaffirmed their support for diversity, equity, and inclusion, that they said it confirms America's values. Julian Epstein, a former Democrat House Judiciary Committee chief counsel, Julian Epstein, was on Fox News Channel, and he said, I think what I was watching yesterday, which was a DNC summer meeting, looked more like a Star Trek convention. This is a party that has almost no self-awareness. The approval numbers, 2/3 of Americans disapprove of the party. Their fundraising numbers, the voter registration numbers are all dropping through the floor as the party associates itself with open borders, high crime. The party is almost becoming like a cult that worships these weird progressive idols. As then sort of the only thing they have to offer is these insults, like Tim Walsh body shaming the president. You know, Tim Walsh going around body shaming to me is like the Taliban criticizing someone for religious intolerance. Oh, that's a good line. Yeah, Tim Walsh, that's the problem. He never, they always try to present him as like the all-American male. There's no self-awareness. This is a party that just stands for negativity and for aligning itself on issues that are far to the left of the median voter and not, as I think points out, putting forward any idea that any of the voters, certainly in the middle, can relate to in any way. So this is something that I've been talking about for years, and it's a problem that just seems to be getting worse, mostly because, as you point out in your question, we don't have strong leaders. And I'm talking about Schumer. I'm talking about Jeffries. And I'm talking about even Obama, that will stand up to this far progressive left that is turning the party into, again, what feels more like a cult to me. Trump threatened more tariffs on nations that tax United States tech giants and gives a complete pass to Chinese tech. The question is being asked by the Post, not a question, a statement. Trump's tariffs could slice a stunning $4 trillion from the U.S. deficit. Rick writes in, no policy. Okay. 10 FBI whistleblowers who warned of political weaponization and face retaliation from the Biden administration have reached a settlement with the DOJ. Chuck Grassley saying these 10 whistleblowers' brave action were met with intense bureaucratic blowback that caused several financial and emotional hardships. Their lives were upended for years, but I never stopped fighting until things were made right. We are completely out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you for all the comments. We had a blast this morning. A lot of waves, a lot of comments. I do appreciate it. I hope that you'll join us tomorrow morning, bright and early, and every weekday morning, starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking. Only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning. I look forward to it already.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
Don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.